don't know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. Malcolm Jenkins leaves the Eagles and signs with the New Orleans Saints. The contract came out. And this is what's so odd to me. Things are not lining up. It's not making sense. So first, let's talk about what the contract is. 4 years, $32 million, with the possibility of making up to $35 million. Okay. Here's the kicker, $16.25 million guaranteed. So it's not a lot of money guaranteed. It's possible to get out of the contract if anything was to happen to Malcolm Jenkins with his play, or God forbid an injury happened. So it's not as if it's overwhelming with money. Derek Gunn of NBC Sports Philadelphia reports that Malcolm asked for $12 to $13 million per when talking to the Eagles. Now, what? He asked for that much money, but then took a way more team-friendly contract? Does he feel some type of way against the Eagles with the way that everything was handled? He went into last season expecting maybe some contract talks to happen throughout the regular season, and nothing happened. Maybe he feels like he was stabbed in the back. I don't know. I assume that he would have asked for top safety market type of money, because that's what people do when they are at that age, when they, not even at that age, when they are in the NFL and they have the ability to be in a position to get more money. Normally, they don't just say, okay, you know what, let's just talk about a little bit of an upgrade. No, they try and squeeze and milk all of the money they possibly can out of organizations. And guess what? I don't blame them for that type of mindset. I would do the same exact thing in their position. So I assumed that was what Malcolm Jenkins would have done. Now, Derek Gunn is confirming from his sources that that's exactly what happened. So how come he dialed it back for the Saints? I hear a lot of speculation that maybe he didn't see the type of money he thought that he would get in free agency, so he decided to lock on with the Saints due to a comfort level, and maybe that was the best thing he was offered. My counter argument to that is he was literally signed instantly. The snap of the fingers, he was signed. I'm sure Sean Payton, the moment he saw the Eagles were allowing Malcolm Jenkins to walk in free agency, hello, Malcolm? Yeah, let's get this thing done. He called instantly. There were people definitely picking up the phone within milliseconds once Malcolm Jenkins walked out of the NovaCare complex. Well, actually, technically, he did not do that based off of the fact that that's not even open and the coronavirus is in full effect. But as soon as the reports got out there, teams were on the call to figure out a lot of different ways to get this man in their organization, which makes sense because he does have some time left in that body. It's just not worth $12 to $13 million per. Now factor in John McMullen of 97.3 ESPN, and he said he spoke to Malcolm Jenkins a bunch of times, and it was never about the top market money. It was just about getting more, because he thought, and he's not wrong, that he played better than what his contract is. Like, he believes that he is worth more than $7.85 million per year, which was what was left on the Eagles' contract. It's fair. It's very fair. But John McMullen is claiming that Malcolm Jenkins was never going to go after that big-time money. It was just about getting more than what he was getting paid for this upcoming season. So a lot of different avenues and a lot of different noise surrounding Malcolm Jenkins, the Philadelphia Eagles, what they offered, what he wanted, and what he got. So it's so hard to really comprehend this. There's just so many different, I'm not going to say outlooks on it, but so many different people in the business saying different things, and I don't know what to believe. So he takes this deal, yet he wants way more from the Eagles, when he also claimed to an insider who's in the locker room all the time, who's at every practice, who's at every home game, that he didn't really care about getting the most possible. He just wanted an upgrade. He just wanted a boost. So I'm almost leaning towards, And I'm not saying Derek Gunn is a liar. I don't think he would put that out there unless he truly believed his sources. But it does seem funky. That's all. It just seems funky when he signs a deal for the Saints that is team friendly, where they can get out of it. And that's the thing. They can get out of this contract when you look at the guaranteed money. So for Howie Roseman to not pay Malcolm the 12 to 13, okay, logically, I totally understand. I really do. It makes so much sense to me why he did not do that. But if he could have gotten Malcolm Jenkins for that contract that the New Orleans Saints signed, that is a no-brainer. You bring him back, and that's why I'm confused. If that option wasn't available for Howie Roseman based off of Malcolm Jenkins feeling like he got disrespected, then okay, I get it. That if that was not on the table for the Eagles, there's nothing you can do about it. But you can question Howie and say, well, how come it got to this point? Why couldn't you have that conversation through the year? And even if you didn't come up with a new contract or an extension or rework anything, at least have the conversation on what you want. Why wasn't this contract on the table for the Eagles? It seems like Malcolm Jenkins sure loved Philadelphia, wanted to be here. I can't imagine, after seeing the Instagram post that he put up about Philadelphia still being his home, I can't imagine him not wanting this contract in Philadelphia because he didn't want to be here anymore. He definitely wanted to be here longer, and that's why it almost is more concerning, because I know how much he loved it here in Philadelphia. I know how much he wanted to stay at the Link and play for this organization. So from that standpoint, it's weird. It's all just weird, and I don't think it's lining up. I feel like there are holes in this conversation, and we need to figure out the details. It's like a puzzle where you're missing a couple pieces. It can't be put together yet. We still need to somehow find information. And guess what? The problem is the puzzle pieces we are talking about, it's possible that they're lost, and we will never get that information to fill in the blanks. And sadly, guess what? At the end of the day, you can't fix it anyway. It is what it is. But I have this question for you. Does it feel worse that he went to the Saints? If he went to the Raiders, if he went to the Miami Dolphins, the Bengals, the Browns, if he went to even, let's look in the NFC, if he went to the Arizona Cardinals, if he went to the Buccaneers and played with Tom Brady, would it feel the same way? Because it hurts he's going to a team that has a chance to win. And maybe that's a reason why he took more of a pay cut, because he wanted to win. How about that? How about that as a factor? He knew the Saints had a great chance of winning a Super Bowl. Did he look at the Eagles and go, I don't know if they're at that chance to win a Super Bowl? Or maybe he hit the free agent market, he got some phone calls, teams threw 12 mil, 13 mil, 11 mil at him, but they weren't Super Bowl winning type teams, and he saw a squad that, one, he's comfortable with because he has played there before, and two, knew that they were a championship type squad, so he took the pay cut and said, you know what, maybe I don't want that 13 mil if I can at least go to the Saints and try to win a championship. Maybe that wasn't his mindset heading into it. It fell on his lap, and that made him make that type of decision. I don't know. I'm just spitballing and looking at every option. But still, going back to my question, does it hurt more that he went to a team that has a chance? Remember, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara a few years back kept running their mouth talking about the Eagles and they didn't deserve a championship, and what ended up happening to them? Yeah, they didn't get the job done either that season. There is some sort of butting heads between the fan bases, the Eagles fan base and New Orleans. So does that make it feel any different? Do you factor in that Malcolm played there before? Clearly, he has an emotional tie to that organization. If he never played there before, do you look at it differently compared to knowing that he did spend some time in that city? It's a crazy story. It really is. And it doesn't feel real. But the Eagles made the decision. Now, one thing that somewhat concerns me with Howie right now is I feel like he's making these moves because of, not because it's the right move or the wrong move, but just because he's trying to defend himself. I've been on the record saying he's doing what he has been telling us he's going to do, so you need to at least credit him for that. And I do think that there is value in it. You could have kept Malcolm. And if the numbers were what it could have been if the numbers he signed with the Saints could have been here, and he just decided, you know what, no. I said we're getting younger. Well, that bothers me, and that's the wrong decision. To clarify what I'm trying to say here, if he could have signed Malcolm Jenkins for the same exact contract, but just wanted to let him go just to prove a point that they were going to get younger, that's silly. That's nonsense. You could have kept Malcolm Jenkins for that contract. But if Derek Gunn's comments were true and Malcolm went in there with the mindset of, I'm going to get 12 to 13 mil, that's what I deserve. You didn't pay me last season after I didn't show up to voluntary OTAs, but I came back and I played every single damn snap. You didn't pay me. I'm going in there and I'm demanding 12 to 13. You can't pay him that, but you can also dial it back and still blame Howie Roseman, because it could be his fault that they were even in that predicament to begin with, because if they started to have conversations behind closed doors in the middle of the season and said, Malcolm, what do you want? What do you really want? What do you feel you're worth? Let's work this thing out. Maybe the numbers would have never gotten to 12 to 13 mil. But once it did, I'm sorry, at that point, you need to pull the trigger as GM and let him walk, because you can't pay him that much money per year at that age. I will also say this. I understand why some people are really upset with Howie. You look at the cornerbacks that left the board. Byron Jones was a big one, and it was obvious that Howie Roseman wanted to go in that direction. You saw Trufant go. Chris Harris was a name that the Eagles were on, and then instantly it was bang, Josina Anderson, of all people, at least that's the first report I saw, said that he was going to the Chargers. And the Trufant thing is big for the Eagles because he goes to the Lions, and that opens up Darius Slay. And Darius Slay is tweeting around pretty much saying, listen, let's get this thing going. I want to get traded. He knows it's coming, so he's waiting for the big moment and waiting for the team. We date back to last year's trade deadline. Howie Roseman and the Eagles talked to the Lions about the trade, so it seems like there is a connection between both franchises based off of recent talks. It is a very big possibility. You are seeing guys go off the board, though, with the cornerbacks and with wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. It's so early in this process. It is so early. Words can't even explain how early it is. Names are coming off the board. But if you look through history and you process how this NFL system works, just because you sign those big-time players for those big-time contracts, a lot of the time, that doesn't really correlate to them being insanely successful that season. I'm not saying I don't want some of these players. I wanted Byron Jones. I would totally go after some of these players that left in this early stages of free agency. You can still find snags elsewhere. You can still find guys that will truly impact this team at a very high rate later on. You need to look at, and I get it, right now in this moment, it's hard to, because you can only assess what's going on right now at this very moment. But until the draft is over, until free agency is over, and until all the trades are done, you just don't truly know what exactly is going on. It's one full package. They have 10 picks. They have trades that they can make. They can acquire Darius Slay. They can go out and make trades elsewhere. They can find a way to get a wide receiver if they choose to do so, if they choose to go out and look at Robbie Anderson. They can make plays happen. This is not over. It is just the beginning. So there are so many ways. Ronnie McLeod, Brandon Brooks, they weren't top-tier players the years the Eagles signed them. Malcolm Jenkins, he wasn't even a top safety in that market when the Eagles went out and acquired him. So there's just so many different avenues to really pursue right now. I get it. In the moment, it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look beautiful. They didn't go out there and get 7 new guys in the secondary like they truly need. They brought back Jalen Mills and Rodney McLeod out of all people. They still need some help. But with that being said, it is not over, and it's not as if there is nobody else available. It will come together. It will mold together. It's just not going to be the top-tier free agent guys. And you know what? That could be a blessing in disguise. It could be. When you look at Byron Jones, I was in favor of paying him that money, but it was almost split 50-50 with how many people thought he was overpaid and not that good, and how many people thought, okay, he's good and he will be overpaid, but he will still help the football team. Let's make it work. Just because they don't land these big-time guys, it does not mean the world is going to end and this team is going to be a dumpster fire. There are problems right now, no doubt about it, but I will be more disgusted with Howie Roseman if this is the beginning of the season, and here's the roster, but that's not going to happen. He will go out and make plays in this offseason, or, he's going to lose his job, so he's going to have to, and everybody involved knows that this team is not good enough yet. Say they go out and say they do get Darius Slay. Say they do get Von Bell, or even a safety that is more experienced and at least makes you feel more comfortable out there. And then say they draft a cornerback. Say they draft 2 wide receivers and they end up being studs. Like, things can totally change. I still think they need help on the defensive end position, and I wonder if Jadeveon Clowney is a possibility. He's out there and he's underwhelmed with what he is being offered by teams. He's not getting nearly as much money as he wanted. But then we dive into the locker room culture. And the last thing that this organization needs is locker room problems. He hit Carson Wentz last year. Was it dirty? Was it not dirty? Malcolm Jenkins leaves, one of the best leaders this team had, and now it already starts right from the jump. Here comes all the media press conference questions, and here comes all of the outside noise. What are these teammates like? What is it going to happen? And it's going to be an absolute dumpster fire if that does happen. But what's best for the team? I'll tell you what's best for the team. If he was on the squad, because they need help at that position. Now, I don't know if they'd be willing to actually go that route, but I do know that if they want to beef up this D-line, like I know they do, they did a great job, a phenomenal job, really, at the defensive tackle position. If they can add great talent to the defensive end spot, well, those safeties and those corners, they don't mean as much. They still mean a lot, but with Jim Schwartz and his scheme, if you're going to have a lethal front 7, then you will be okay with more of average guys than needing stud corners back there. And then I mentioned how there's so much time. Remember when we traded Jordan Matthews for Ronald Darby and that worked out? Remember when they got Patrick Peterson and that worked out? Those weren't moves where you dialed up these free agents right from the jump and attacked them instantly right from the beginning of the opening period, and boom, there's your team. So from knowledge and from history, there's still time to get things done. That's pretty much what I am getting at. Now, I mentioned wide receivers. I mentioned DeAndre Hopkins before. There's this story out there that the Eagles talked to Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans and backed out of trade conversations. Here's my counterpoint to freaking out about this. When news breaks, I always look at every direction possible. I also know that media in today's society, it's all about clickbait and articles and getting a lot of clicks on certain articles. I get that. Saying that Howie Roseman pulled out of this conversation, okay, that could be true. That could very much be true. And I'm sure they did talk. But there needs to be context in this story. So we understand that Bill O'Brien made a poor decision by allowing the Arizona Cardinals to send over David Johnson and a second-round pick, and fourth-rounders, I believe, were swapped as well, for DeAndre Hopkins. And the outrage is, I can't believe Howie Roseman didn't put something better together. When they talked, who knows what was said? If Bill O'Brien and Howie Roseman discussed anything, and say Bill O'Brien, who is a very crazy individual when it comes to being a general manager, can't we all agree with that? He doesn't know what the hell is going on. So if he goes up to Howie Roseman and says, give me Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz, and I'll give you DeAndre Hopkins. And then, what do you know? Howie Roseman backs out of the talks. Okay, well, that would make sense. We don't know what was said. We don't know what was said. So if Bill O'Brien went, hey, listen, I don't know if I'm really interested in any of your players. Okay, Howie Roseman walks away from trade conversations with the Houston Texans. You get my point. I promise you, if Bill O'Brien came up with something so bad, like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in a second, or Boston Scott for a second, Howie Roseman would have made that trade. I know Howie is getting blamed for a lot right now, but trust me, if anything similar to what the Cardinals sent over was discussed with the Eagles, he would have done it. Now, in that report, it was also mentioned that the contract extension with DeAndre Hopkins was part of the reason why they stepped away. $18 to $20 million per year is what he was asking for. That's the price range DeAndre Hopkins is looking for. Now, it is possible, and here's the one scenario where I would do it, but it wouldn't be easy. And maybe this was what Bill O'Brien wanted, and Howie Roseman elected not to look that way, would be Miles Sanders. Because I wonder if Bill O'Brien wanted a running back, for some reason wanted a running back, which is the easiest position to fix. I mean, it's a plug-and-play type of position. If Bill O'Brien said, I'll take Miles Sanders off your hands, and maybe third-round pick, second-round pick, or something of that nature, I would do it. I think I would do it. It wouldn't be easy, but I would do it because you can find a running back easier than you can find a wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. Now, if that was the case scenario, if that was the scenario that happened, if that was the case, I would look at Howie Roseman and question that. That would be the one scenario where I would do it. But to just say instantly, after seeing that Howie Roseman backed out of talks, we don't know what went down. So Bill O'Brien could have been so delusional, he asked for something nuts. Carson Wentz. Hey, give me Carson Wentz, and I'll give you DeAndre Hopkins. You know, that sounds silly, but we're also talking about the same guy who took on David Johnson and a second-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. He didn't even get a first-round pick for this man. Not a first-round pick for one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Now, obviously, he didn't ask for Carson Wentz, but you get my point. Until we know what actually went down and what type of conversation happened, we can't say it's automatically Howie Roseman's fault for not being able to execute a trade for DeAndre Hopkins. So, clearly to me, the Eagles are not done. It hasn't been the smoothest by any means. They need to get a cornerback. They really do. I mean, they really do have to go out and get a cornerback that is reliable, someone who has experience in the NFL, not just a draft pick that you're going to throw in the fire with Sidney Jones on the other side. You need a legit corner who's 29, in that range, and you got to let them go out there and play. You need that type of player. You need a safety. You need a linebacker. You need a DN. You need an O-line. You need wide receivers. They have 10 draft picks. They still have the second tier of free agents. They still have trades that is very possible to go out and make phone calls and make some acquisitions happen that way. So don't freak out insanely. Look at the history of the NFL. Look at these teams. It's not all about just the top tier free agents. There are other ways to grow. There are other ways to groom your football squad. And obviously at this point, the Eagles are going to go in that way. And it doesn't mean it's the worst thing in the world. Now, if we are talking about August and this is still the team and there wasn't much of an improvement, okay, by all means, get going. Get those Twitter fingers going. Start screaming in the comment section. Do whatever you got to do at Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office. But as for right now, it is just too early to get all pissed off and start crying about things. Things will most likely be all right, and they will be a better football team by August. Seriously, that is the case. They will be better than what they are now. Will that be good enough? That is still up for debate, and that we will find out with time. Just relax and take some deep breaths, and in, out, in, out. That's all. That's all. Take some deep breaths. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.